hooked up in the fireworks?
No, actually, I was in it before him. This is my 32nd year.
Oh, you probably got him hooked up in it then.
Yeah, kind of.
When we were at Timberland together, I know he had a couple of stands out there when we were at
Yeah.
Timberland.
Yep. And I've been doing this with Green, and I was doing it with Koffel and all those guys forever. Joe Oliva.
When we were at Timberland together, I know he had a couple. I was talking to Coach Green a few minutes ago. We bought 2 scoreboards from him, so they're coming in
Told me
Friday.
that, yeah. So Kenny's my partner out there. So I had to watch him climb into a tractor trailer today. That was I should have got that on film.
Got you get that with your spring money you didn't spend?
Yes, yes.
We bought
No,
7.
Unfortunately, our budgets were frozen, and we got to spend no money in April or May.
Yeah.
People's Banking Trust opened up a branch here in Colleyville, and they bought a new scoreboard for St. Charles Community College and for us.
Good.
Cool.
I think the banking business must be doing well still.
Well, you guys want to go at 3:10? Does that sound okay?
Yeah, Dave, we should be ready to go by then.
Fabulous. God, Shane, what year is that?
12.
Really?
Yep. Big guys right there.
I love them. Ken, have you met your guys yet? In person?
Yep. Well, I actually met them before we had to stop school, so I had a meeting with all of them. So, and having nice communication with them all. So,
Okay.
the only thing we can do is talk. So, Zoom meetings been in the past, so I had a lot of time to meet all of them. So it actually worked. That part actually worked out well. To be honest with you.
Good. Mhm. One minute. All right, I guess we'll get started. Welcome to the STL High School Sports and STL Today and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch Roundtable on what high school sports could look like in the fall. I would like to thank and welcome our esteemed panel. These gentlemen, you might recognize them, you might not, but they are willing to give some of their time today to us, and we appreciate that very much. So we'll just start in alphabetical order with DeSmet Athletic Director John Pacula, Alexander Fox from Edwardsville, Scott Harris from Francis Howell Central, Shane Matson from Marquette, and Ken Turner from St. Mary's, their brand new football coach who came over this side of the river after a long, successful stint at Althoff High. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
So I guess the first place to start is how much of what we're going to talk about depends on school resuming in somewhat of a relatively normal fashion. I mean, is there a scenario in which school doesn't look anything like the way it has in the past falls? We've been around doing this. Or how much of it depends on that? Anybody?
I think that's that's the biggest question of everything. I think if we're back to how we were obviously in the spring, I don't see any way that we're playing. Everything after that just goes in phases, with just like their phases are. If you're in school, it's hard for me to think that football is going to get played if it's too dangerous to go to school. It can't be too dangerous to play football. So, that's a hard pill to swallow, obviously for all of us. But hopefully things with these phases that we're working in now go in the right direction and we can get moving.
Yeah, we had some conversations in Rockwood about maybe in June doing some things, trying to be very limited with activities. But, in the end, the conversation always turned to, we're doing online summer school. So how can we justify doing things out on the field or in the courts or the weight room? So that kind of justifiably so put an end to that conversation.
And I would echo what both of those guys said. If our district did the same thing, we shut down summer school. So if we're not in school, I think you're going to lean on, if you're not in school, or if you're not in school, the way you're a full day. Some schools are talking about hybrid versions, maybe A day, a B day, or go half days. Our biggest fear, if we're not in school full time, we would be able to play sports.
I think we've also got an interesting situation, just geographically speaking, with the fact that Illinois and Missouri, with us being a border state here, one of my concerns is really, what happens if Missouri is ahead of us and we're behind, or vice versa, with the amount of games that we play between each other across the river. That could throw a lot of problems into people's schedules and things like that as well. So, that's another thing that worries me a little bit as far as reopening.
So I had a survey come across my Twitter feed, the School Superintendents Association. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. They released the results. 94% of the national superintendents aren't ready to announce when school will resume. They're not confident in that, with 8 weeks to go before most schools are going to resume. So what's it like kind of navigating the processes you guys are working through and the phases 1, 2, 3, and just trying to get the kids on campus to get back into conditioning and just, being together and not knowing whether or not it's all going to be for naught?
Well, I believe that you got to go forward with what they're giving us. And so it seems like we're moving ahead with the phase, especially with Missouri opening up, today or yesterday. And so, each day, if it's positive, it seems like we can do a little bit more. And so, we just have to go by what we hear. If the schools opened up, obviously, if we're doing homeschooling, we won't have football. We won't have any sports. That's obvious. But, the only thing we do is it seems positive right now. And as long as it continue to go up, we're just hoping that it goes up and everything's getting normal, and then we can get back to, some type of normalcy.
And that's what you're seeing when a few districts have already released their return to play protocol for the summer, not for the school year, of course. And the one thing you're seeing, most of those want advice from the medical personnel or St. Louis County or maybe St. Charles County. Everything's broken down in 2-week phases. July 1, July 15th, we'll do X, Y, and Z. If things go well, we move forward. July phase 2 could be less restrictive. And we're hoping that we can keep building toward that and return to school on time, August 24th in most cases, and then fall sports on August 10th for everyone, if we keep progressing that way.
Well, some of these guys on this Zoom know me and know I've got a major anal retentive problem. Good scenario for me. So I like planning things way out. We had a Zoom meeting with our staff today, and I calmed down long enough to speak to them in a gentle manner and said, right now our focus is July 1st through 15th, and we're going to do the very best we can to make that time period good. And if we do a good job, then hopefully we'll be able to have a chance to move forward. It's just as much on us to do the right things as it is to the people making the health guideline decisions, because if we screw up, I mean, we're just going to make it bad. If Marquette doesn't do it right, we're going to make it bad for these other 4 schools here on this Zoom.
I think that's been the hardest part of the process is coaches are anxious. I think kids are anxious, and just letting them know that this is a phased approach and you just have to be patient. And patience is something that everybody has. It's a hard thing to understand. But we're taking the same approach. You're going week to week. We're hoping for some new guidelines over here and moving into a next phase as early as next week. So, we're keeping our fingers crossed, but at the same time, nothing's guaranteed.
From that
But
coach,
Alex's point-
from a coach, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going
Okay.
to Alex's point, the patience thing, we all want to make sure that we're being safe and keeping everyone safe. But I think the patience or even frustration comes, like we were talking about before we went on air. If you go to a baseball park or a softball park, you see hundreds of people at youth baseball and youth softball games. You come back to school on Monday and your campus is still locked up. So I think that's really trying people's patience and really frustrating to some people. I explain to our coaches, we're a public school, so we're going to follow the guidelines set forth by public organizations. But that's where your patience, like Coach mentioned there, really has to come in, because everywhere else you're seeing it being handled a lot differently.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken. What were you going to say?
I was just saying, from a coaching standpoint, it's tough, and like you said, like you're talking about baseball, and down on the hill, it's like baseball games going on, but we can only have 10 guys, and so
Right.
these guys are kids, and so they're looking down there and they're like, Coach, what? They don't really understand, and it's like a new process. Like, I don't care how many years I've been coaching, I've never coached this way, and so everything is new, and we're learning something every day. And there's a lot of positives to it, though, be honest with you, but it's kind of tough. It really is.
I'm just mad at those ADs back in the 1918 didn't leave us any instructions on how to handle this thing.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, the big difference between St. Louis County and St. Charles County and what's going on in Illinois, and we're all so close. Some of us live in a spot and work in another one. I know I went, like Sky said about, I love to play golf. I went out to play golf at the Falls, and this was 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I walked into the Quick Trip on Bryan Road. It was 2017 out there. There wasn't a mask in sight. We're wide open, baby. So, there's just a lot of going on and so many mixed messages. Nobody knows who to listen to. That's kind of the hard part. All of us can do great with these phases. It only takes one school to pop, cases of COVID. We're all going to be shut down. So hopefully, if anybody gets anything out of this, it's, we all got to do our part, to try to, do the best we can. And it's not easy. You guys know I'm coaching football and doing the athletic director thing. So, your heart and your head, got to try to do the best you can.
And that's interesting. What is it like trying to navigate all the different protocols for all the different parts of, like you said, St. Louis County has a certain set of protocols. St. Charles County, I think, is now wide open, Scott, right? There aren't as many restrictions in St. Charles County as St. Louis County. And then obviously Illinois is a completely different. What is it like trying to navigate all of those?
Well, we met this morning. The 3 ADs in the Francis House School District met this morning with our district administration and came up with our return to play protocol. And we leaned on some county schools in our conference. We leaned on Rockwood and Parkway and schools like that. We came up with what our return to play would look like. But now our next step is taking the St. Charles County health officials and making sure they okay it. Like you said, everything's wide open in the public sector, you know, but in restaurants and quick trips and gas stations and Little League baseball. But now we want to take sure and take our recommendations before we give them to our coaches. St. Charles County health officials have to sign off on that before our administration does. So to your point, it makes it very difficult because I was at Ozark last weekend, Springfield, last weekend with a youth baseball tournament with my son. And we're playing at local high schools down there. And down there, there's no restrictions. They're practicing football, practicing soccer. The marching band's on the field. I come back to my school on Monday, and we're still shut down and locked down. So that's just the hardest thing, like we talked about a couple of times here, is just navigating how it's different from school to school, county to county, and part of the states is part of the states.
And I'm curious, like, what kind of advantages would that give? I mean, Alex had kind of mentioned that earlier with, you know, Illinois and Missouri, and, you know, he's got a couple games against big time Missouri teams, John's Spartans in particular. What's it like with trying to compete against programs, should we get to that point, that have had that extra month of practice and time together and conditioning? How does that affect the, you know, the fall season as well?
I believe maybe the conditioning part, but to be honest with you, like coaches, we all do things different. Like some coaches, they don't mess with football in June. They just lift in June. And, you know, some, you know, they start in June with football and they break it off in July. So I don't know how much an advantage. It can be an advantage as far as maybe knowledge of what they know. But like I figured out, like doing these Zoom meetings and board talk with Zoom meetings, my guys are a lot more focused because that's all we have right now. When we were doing that, that's all we had was just focus on the board. And, you know, I had their total focus, you know, because they're learning something new on offense and defense. So, but I don't know how much of an advantage it is with the way summer is. It's not mandatory for a lot of people, but, you know, I don't know. Pads, you know, some people like pads are, you know, because the factory shut down. So some people don't have their gear, like we don't have helmets yet because it's shut down. And then when they reopen, then, you know, it's going to take some time to get your stuff. So it's going to be a lot of little small disadvantages here and there. But unless you shut down the whole summer until maybe August 15th, which, you know, we hope that's not the case. But I don't know how much of an advantage it is.
Yeah, I think on some levels it comes back to routines. And when you have your coaching staffs that have been together for a number of years, they get in the routines of, as you said, Ken, you know, you're lifting this period of time, you're starting to do some walkthrough stuff, some contact days and everything else. And I think when you lose those routines, people get afraid because you feel behind. I don't know if you necessarily are behind, but you definitely feel like you are. Right. Then you also start thinking they're ahead, you know, them, you know, and so there's that fear. So I think it's really what worries people is the loss of the routine. And not knowing when that is going to get back to normal. And I don't think there's going to normal, as we've noted last year, is gone. You know, we don't even have to discuss that anymore. There's going to be a new normal. And this is the start of that. And unfortunately, on some levels, we're all kind of the crash test dummies, you know, now that have to go through it before it becomes our new routine.
We had, I know there was some superintendents in the St. Louis area that reached out to Misha and just inquired about that our side of the state was probably in a much more difficult than the rest of the state and just asked for some levels, so to speak. But, you know, I tell people, I said, you know, if I'm in Warsaw, Missouri, and we have 0 cases and my local people tell me I can practice, I don't think I should stop just because St. Louis has more cases. I don't blame them for wanting to do what they do. But as far as, you know, I think Ken really phrased it well. You know, when I was coaching, I coached a winter sport, but I remember in the fall when we're conditioning and I got kids not showing up for whatever reason, and I'm getting angry and all this. For some reason, when district hit, I didn't remember what was going on. You know, and I found when I had better players, we probably played deeper into
better.
So just try to remember that and, you know, and just stay in the moment like all these guys are saying.
All right. And what are the, like, Rockwood for Shane, Rockwood is started July 1. Is that when you guys have targeted your first
Correct.
return to
Yep.
practice?
Yep.
Alex, you had mentioned you guys started, was it this Monday or last week?
We just started conditioning stuff this Monday, and it's got a lot of rules and regulations to it. You know, the kids have to be broken into groups, and the groups have to. It really doesn't lend itself to anything but conditioning. You know, the kids have to stay in the same group. They can't do any type of sports specific drills, things like that. So, and the groups are small. So yeah, we started this Monday with that portion.
My understanding is it's 9 athletes per 1 coach. And with a distance between groups of like half a football field. Does that sound about right?
That's about it.
You know,
And
the
what
best
is
part
that?
is the best part is when they came out and said it was 1 coach per 9 players, but then all of a sudden they threw out a number of 34 kids being in one area at a time, and that's not divisible by 9. So I don't know how that works. That's just the kind of stuff that we're having to deal with. We sat there and planned out, okay, we're going to have 1 coach with 9 guys in this corner of the field. The next thing you know, there's a number of 34 in there, and you're scrambling around to change that stuff, you know. So it's just hard to know who to listen to. And like I said before, you know, you want to do what's best and try to be bad, but our kids were all spread out on the field in their groups, and they did jumping jacks, Spartan jumping jacks the other day. Just, you know, for their whole life, when jumping jacks are over, they all run in and each other, and we're blowing whistles because that's what kids do. You know, you're like trying to keep them apart from each other, but you know, it's just weird when you got kids that, you know, 5 guys ride to the practice together in a car 1 foot apart and get out, and they got to wear a mask and get their temperature taken and then go stay apart from each other for an entire, you know, workout period. And it's got to be hard for a 17 and 18-year-old kid. I know it's rough on me. So.
And what are those protocols? Like you say, you're taking temperatures. The groups have to be the same groups every day to maintain consistency with contact tracing and those things. Just how many hoops do you have to jump through to get 9 kids on a field to run back and forth and just get a sweat in?
Well, the toughest part with me is, to me, it's like, you know, when you have a large group of kids and, you know, and they're consistent, wanting to show up and want to do things. And now you're planning your day out, and, you know, you can start at 7:30 and get them through, and then you're not done in 1 or 2, you know, if you're trying to do it the right way. And so that part, and that's, you know, that's usually when we include watching film and everything. So that's, you know, we're just trying to get these kids through in these small groups. And so that part, you know, it's tough, but I feel like I'm already used to it. And because, you know, what else can we do? But, you know, we got to do what we're supposed to do. But outside of the time span and, you know, getting them through, keeping them separated and constantly, because their focus goes quick, you know, like, you know, they want to give each other 5, but you can't. And so outside of that, but as far as the length of the day for me is what's a little bit, I'm not going to say tough, but just like scheduling them at different times. And but you get more focused because you got less group of kids in each group. So that's a part for me was getting used to, because I want them all there, but, you know, we can't have them all there.
I
And
think
that's what we're starting, you know, we're starting July, like I said, Rockwood is there with Shane, and we're kind of using their protocol. The number will be a little bit higher, and, you know, I think 30 is the number, or 34 is the number, starting July 1. And we had a meeting with our coaching staff yesterday, and just kind of had everyone break down what's that look like in basketball, what's that look like in lacrosse, what's that look like in football. So I want them to come up with a plan, at least for those 2 weeks. Then hopefully after those 2 weeks, the numbers can increase, you get less restrictive. But like Coach said, right now it's just trying to, how do you maximize with those numbers and those coaches, how can you get the most amount of conditioning done, skill work if applicable, but just breaking down for those numbers, you know, and that's just harder. You know, some sports, it's not gonna be tough. If we have 30 kids in the gym for basketball, you know, we have everybody show up, we don't even have that much in the season or whatever, you know, so they're used to having 12 to 15 for their team, you know, but football will be the big one, the larger numbers. Marching band, you know, how do you do 150 marching band people, you know? So we had all of our coaches come up with what that will look like for the first 2 weeks in those small group. And hopefully we can move to the next phase where the groups get a little bigger.
I'm sure everybody's kind of in the same boat with as we are. I don't know. I think a big difference too is like the paperwork aspect of things. Coaches are having to maintain. We've got to maintain logs of those daily checkups. So that's a little bit of a thing. This new waiver. Most of you probably are doing waivers that kids and parents have to sign. That we had coaches have to sign waivers. So those are all new things that become a little bit of a management nightmare as well.
Yeah, and like Scott said, I mean, we're gonna delaying has some benefits to it that we won't have to go through the 9 and trying to figure out what that means. But 30 to a venue, and a venue for us could mean half a football field, could mean the track, could mean a gym, could mean the band room, could mean the choir room. And it's frustrating as a coach to have these limitations put on you. One of the biggest things I emphasized in our coaches meeting earlier today was keep in mind during these 2 weeks when you can't have linemen hit each other, can't have wrestlers touch each other, which I'm still as a basketball coach trying to figure out what we're going to get done with wrestling. You can't touch each other. But keep in mind that the first 2 weeks, how great is it going to be just to be in the vicinity of your kids and be able to look them in the face and smile and say hello, and I'm so glad to see you. I think that may be the number one thing that comes out of these first 2 weeks is getting our face-to-face relationships back.
And that's something I was curious about for the guys who have had kids back, Ken and John, and what has it been like just to be around people? Because so many of us haven't been around much of anybody since near the end of March.
Yeah, it's hard being away from those kids, man. You get used to seeing their face and they lift you up. So you try to lift them up, but they definitely do a better job of lifting me up than I do them, I'm sure. So not being around them is hard. I saw a kid at a stoplight like 3 weeks ago, man. He was honking at me and just we hadn't seen each other for 4 months. It's just I've seen him on Twitter, and that's about it, and a few Zoom meetings, but just seeing him face to face was awesome. And seeing all those kids the other night was really good. I know one thing we battle, and I'm sure it's because it's kind of a deal now, it's Robert and I are the only coaches in our building. So you've got coaches that are out of the building and they're working during the day. So, that makes it a little bit more of a hassle to figure out the timing and and everything like that.
So with me, it's a little bit different, and it's been, because I'm new, so I'm trying to build a relationship with all these new kids, and it's actually going along real fast, and it's okay. So actually, if I look at the breakdown of having small groups, that helps me learn and understand who each kid is. So, but no, it's been great because I've been having Zoom meetings with these guys, and they're excited, to be around me just like I'm excited to be around them. It's all new and everybody's excited. So, no, it's been fun seeing these guys and, that you hear about and that I haven't been over here. I've been in Illinois and to see these guys move around a little bit and communicate with these guys. So it's been exciting for me and them also.
With all the protocols that have been put in place, I mean, St. Louis County in particular, currently, you can do certain athletic activities at the youth level, but baseball, football, basketball, you can't be on a field doing those things in St. Louis County at the moment. I mean, is there a scenario where we get to the fall and you are allowed to have golf and cross country, but football is deemed too tight? We can't put 11 kids on one side and 11 on the other and 50 on, like CBC and DeSmet or Edwardsville and East Side have 80 kids on each sideline. I mean, is there a scenario where some sports play and some sports don't?
I would think that would be very possible, we hope we don't get to there, but, in the one report, I think the hospital, the Big Three put out, it broke it down in different levels of sports, with the golf and tennis being in one and volleyball and things like that. So I could definitely see moving forward, we could get to that. And it says, a sport like cross country or a sport like tennis or golf, maybe you're able to play in St. Louis County, St. Charles County, but soccer, wrestling, a football, they may put the brakes on that. We hope not. It'll probably depend how these next 6 or 8 weeks go, but I'd have to think that had to be a possibility right now.
I've told my guys, I don't know how the heck the winter time, if that's when that's supposed to pop back up again, you know. You hope they get to.
Well, the logistics, at the state level of Southwest Missouri is good to go. St. Louis is not. Northeast is good. Kansas City's not. What a terrible situation to be in. I
Right.
mean, if you get to that point.
Yep.
And I saw some chatter back and forth about not crossing, like initially at the beginning of the summer, the story from the hospitals was, you shouldn't play teams from outside of St. Louis.
Right.
Shouldn't recommend diving on a fumble. I mean, I don't know how you play football, but you can't dive on the football. I don't, but they're the expert. I'm just here talking to you guys. But what is it like, maybe we have to rebuild your schedule. Like, maybe Edwardsville isn't going because Illinois has something happen or St. Louis County has something happen. What do you just kind of have to play it by ear to figure out who you're going to play maybe in 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Or how do you kind of, I don't know, address that hypothetical? Because that sounds kind of awful.
You better hand out some stomach medication if it gets to that point.
Yeah.
That's an AD's nightmare, man, because it takes us 2 years to put together the next year's schedule. And the thing we've got going now, with the state of affairs with officiating is we're up to 2 or 3 sports now where our schedules are dictated by officials' availability.
Right.
So, trying to reschedule is not simply a matter of, hey, Scott, you want to play? It doesn't work like a single phone call, as these guys well know.
I think you got a situation when you talk about the referees too. Our referees is up there, so those guys are the most vulnerable, people for this virus. So, are we going to lose? If we lost 10 football officials in St. Louis, we'd be in big
Wow.
trouble.
The 2 crews, that's right.
Yeah, you'd be in big trouble.
So, I'm going to take a reader question here, and I'm curious. Speaking of the referees, what do you guys see doing to keep the referees safe? Is that something where they wear masks? Is that something where we're social? The referees are different positioned. Has there been any kind of conversation about that, or is that putting the horse before the cart? The cart before the horse. Excuse me.
I don't think at our level there's been discussion, but I would imagine Misha or the officials advisory committee, or the health and medicine advisory committee. I would assume they're talking about options like that. I know I haven't heard any discussion about that, but I can see, like Coach McCullough's mentioned, a lot of our referees are elderly. If they're coming out to referee a game, they're going to want to take every precaution possible to keep themselves safe. So I'd imagine there'll be some modifications for them.
Yeah, you gotta. At the level that we're playing football here, we went somewhere one time and it was like 2 officials didn't show up. Well, do you still want to play with a 3-man crew? You can't play varsity football with a 3-man crew because you've got safety concerns just alone in the game itself. Let's just take COVID out of the equation. So,
Right.
To start moving guys around and putting them in different locations, I don't know how it works. That's gonna create a whole new can of worms. But I agree. Some of these guys are older, and to put them out there in the middle of this is going to be another question that's going to have to be answered.
So another question that just came in is for the Missouri guys. When do you see the district assignments being released from the Missouri State High School Activity Association? That's usually the week before the season, is it not?
Yeah, pretty close.
They've wanted to get more current enrollment numbers, and that's been the whole thing behind this. And I know it's frustrating because you want to know who's in your district and that sort of thing, but it's not going to affect scheduling because we do football scheduling 2 years out. So that's going to come right before the season. I know this question's been posted in a couple places leading up to this chat, but that's been standard for the last couple of years. Whether you like it or not, that's just been
Right.
what it is.
All right. And I Wow, that was a really long question that just got submitted. Holy cow. Hold on a second. I'm not a fast reader. I don't know if I want to touch that one. That's kind of hot. What if for you athletic directors who were involved in recruiting with your student athletes, what's that been like for like your junior class, especially going into their senior year? Because junior year, especially for the football guys, is a big piece of the recruiting puzzle. That's when they get to go to camps, they get to go to visits, they get to do all those kinds of things. What have you seen or had to communicate with your guys to try and, address that reality in a COVID world? What are you trying to do to help those kiddos get their opportunities at that next level?
Well, I think they're lucky these days that they have stuff like Huddle and they can send, their film off to a guy and, they don't have to wait on a coach to sit in front of a VCR. And I know I'm showing my age, but, I thought I died and went to heaven when I got a 5 DVD burner one year when I was coaching football. So, it's kind of a different time. I think the recruiting's gone on. Those college guys are going to figure out how to get the kids they need. I think the big issue is, like those spring kids not being able to play sports, they missed out on an opportunity to be seen, and that'll be the same with the kids in the fall if they don't get to play. It's those, the superstars are going to get what they're going to get. It might be a little bit less. I don't think it will be, but it's those fringe guys that need to show out this fall to end up getting, seen by somebody that I think are the ones that are going to suffer from all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I look at our baseball team and we had just come off that state title and, Drake Westcott's going to be fine because Drake Westcott is Drake Westcott. Right. He's good to go. But I wonder how many kids on the team missed maybe some opportunities because people were coming to see Drake Westcott and they see player B out here in center field or, this kid who plays shortstop for us and those opportunities are missed. And that's sad for those kids. And it will be for the fall, like you said, John, if it happens again. So yeah, those are kids you worry about the most of the kids that are really on that bubble.
I think other than football, recruiting has moved so much away to organizations that are built for recruiting.
Right.
And I know basketball that I coached is a very good example with the AAU system. And I was very fortunate. This guy behind me here, I keep blocking him, was my Division I player. But I was very fortunate to, have great relationships with AAU and the understanding of high school is there to have more for memories than anything else. I mean, developing friendships, wearing your community's jersey, that sort of thing. And, and us understanding, I got to give that big guy behind me time to go play for his AAU team so the college guys can see him and do those kind of things. But I always tell parents and kids, I say, if you're good enough, they're going to find you because they're in the business of finding talent. I think, and this could be a whole other scenario here, but I've always, we have so many people spending so many thousands of dollars to be recruited. And I think the word's got to get out there sometimes that we can promise scholarships, but it might be $1,000 scholarship to a $31,000 university. Right. And I think that's something that, I think needs to be more upfront and clear to the people that are getting involved in this game that's played. Oh, by the way, Pat Burns, who's the new head of
Scheduler
for St. Louis, just texted me. He said the officials, the signers are all talking about taking care of their referees and officials. So
and life continues on even in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I know, Alex, you recently announced you had hired a new girls basketball coach, and you're also looking for a new volleyball coach. What's it like trying to continue to do the things that athletic directors do typically in normal life amidst a pandemic?
It gets a little more complicated. Fortunately, this Zoom thing that I'm figuring out makes some things a little bit easier. So you can still be face to face. I think the hard part is just getting the information out sometimes to everybody. But, we were lucky. We've been lucky to have candidates internally that have been able to fill shoes for some years because they've worked under great coaches, which is, the case with Katie taking a girl's job. She's been with Lori for a lot of years and she was just ready to make that move. Volleyball is a little bit more complicated now that Lisa was with us for a couple years. So she really didn't work with our assistants as long, and we've got some longtime assistants, but you just open it up, you see what comes back, and you set up Zoom interviews, and you go from there, and you hope you find the right fit. Sometimes I don't know if it changes it that much, because you can get it wrong on Zoom and you can get it wrong in person, or you can get it right. So I'm hoping to get it right, because I don't need Edwardsville turning on me too quick.
And I can add to that a little bit. I ended up hiring a head baseball coach, only our second one in school history, and a head dance coach throughout this quarantine. And I think the biggest thing that I noticed was I had some very good internal and external candidates in both. And with internal, you feel pretty confident about, them. But the external, I mean, we're doing it over Zoom. And that's the only part I wish that I missed out on, because you feel like if you get them in a room, you can read the body language a little better, get to know them a little better. And I felt like some really high quality, external candidates. Of course, we had the same questions, and we had committees in various rounds, but that was the only hardest part, was just people you didn't know ahead of time, trying to get to know them through Zoom, which is not always the easiest thing to do. But we had 3 rounds for dance, 4 rounds for baseball. So we had multiple rounds of doing it, but it was pretty unique, because we love sitting in the room and just talking and seeing where the interviews take us. It was quite different doing it through Zoom.
We hired a new band director. We're really excited about him. And yesterday I walked up to the building. It's the first time I've seen him in person. I mean, he was working in the band room, moved over from Kansas City. So, I mean, it's just excited about him, but wow, that's different. I mean, I walked in, I see all you guys here, but if I'm standing in a room with you, you look a little different. So he and I both weren't quite sure what to say at that moment. So it's a very unique experience.
The same thing, my dance coach, she popped her head in her office yesterday. Hey, Scott, I had to do a double glance. I wasn't sure who it was. I felt bad. Oh, hey, coach, how are you? Same type of thing. We had talked and seen each other on Zoom numerous times, but face to face, a little different.
Me and my mom crossed paths at Walmart. She didn't recognize me. Both had on masks. So if that tells you anything, and I'm 6'8", and she still stared at me and she wasn't sure. So yeah, it's strange times.
One thing that, before you go on, David, I know one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, and it falls on Misha, obviously, but you've got some school districts that you would consider the haves, and you've got some school districts that are considered the have-nots. And how do you make that disparity work out in all of this? There's a big disparity on what, some schools are able to afford their kids if we are doing e-learning. We're blessed at DeSmet to be one-on-one and everybody has a laptop, but that's not how it is all over St. Louis. So, there's definitely a disparity there every day. And I think this just makes it worse. So I just wonder how Misa's going to handle that, because some of those guys aren't maybe not going to be able to figure out ways to get their kids together, so.
Well, I'm curious, like you mentioned, what is the budget implications of not having sports in the fall or in the spring? So that did any of the schools or districts, did you guys get a surplus? Did that get put into somewhere else? Can you even address that? Because I know that's usually above your pay grade, but I am kind of curious how the spring affects the fall financially.
Well, that's a funny question, or good question, both. I can't count. I'm sure these guys did the same thing. I bet I got 20 emails from vendors. Hey, use your excess money. Hey, spend your money. And I don't know how other schools are, but our finance officer said, we're not spending anything, until we know what's going on, because of course our budget will be impacted several ways, from the state funding, you heard about the cuts to education there, to local tax dollars being impacted. So of course the school, especially in the public schools, our budgets, our school district budgets will be impacted, in negative ways. And that's going to trickle down, I'm sure, to athletics. But, almost every day I was getting an email, hey, spend your money before the year's out. I've been told directions for next year, but for the recently completed school year, we just shut all spending off. We didn't spend anything else, throughout the spring seasons. And next year we have a budget. We turn that in February, but we'll see if that gets adjusted or if that gets hit at all, which it could be, because if the district has budget cuts, everybody's going to feel it in some way.
We were very fortunate because the money for transportation and on fees for tournaments, officials and all that for spring sports, that was fiscal year money. And if it didn't get spent by the end of June, it was going to disappear. So our district really worked well with our 4 ADs, and we came up with a proposal on how to take advantage of the situation, because we were in such bad need of some scoreboard upgrades. Showed that to our district that this is something we may never get this opportunity again to make these improvements, because we've tried to do things in the past with advertising and stuff that just didn't fit what we wanted. So yeah, we're going to have some nice scoreboards on our campus, which I'm really excited about. I guess in the end, it's just all about making the best of a bad situation.
So a reader question, are there specific plans you can share about school in the fall? Is anybody have anything that they've heard about they'd feel comfortable sharing with the group?
I think
I would just say, as far as DeSmet goes, we're we've been meeting for months about that. So, we've tried to cover every different contingency and every possible scenario that can come up, and I think we've done a good job of it. But we're at the mercy of what the county and everybody else says, just like everybody else. So you can come up with all the plans you want. They can get dashed in one news conference these days. So
No kidding.
but that's kind of where we're at. We've tried to come up with as many different plans as possible that all work for our workplace, and I think they're great. But we got to see how it all plays out.
Anybody? So
I think we're
Al-
I think we're in the same boat. I know our district has multiple task forces trying to look like what's going to look like return to school, whether it's transportation wise, HR, logistically, all those. We're trying to sit together. But like Coach just said, we're evaluating everything, looking at every possible options. If we're here full time, if it's a hybrid model of, if we're here part time and online part time, if we're all online. I think everything right now is on the table, trying to put as many options together, and then whatever the health officials let us do, plug that in and go from there. But like Coach said, it can change any day. We can plan a great plan and come out tomorrow and it can be changed,
As a parent of 2 boys that graduated from Marquette, I mean, I still have that perspective of a parent. So I guess I'll say this to make the person that asked that question feel better. Plans get rolled out and sent out in emails to administration before they go to the public and so on and so forth. And I just remember about 10 days before spring break hit that I was seeing emails about this elaborate plan to go online if we had to leave. And I was like, wow. I mean, somebody was on the ball and had been looking way ahead to have that stuff ready. And it just made me feel good that we've got people that are, advanced outlook on things and have things in place. And I can tell you, the 5 schools you've got here in districts here, that stuff's all going on in all these places and many more around the area.
I think what I would say to those parents is, they just got to remember this is all uncharted territory. So, that's why every plan's on the table, to be honest with you, because, it's something that none of us in our lifetimes have ever had to deal with. And you just got a lot of people that are just trying to make sure they get it right.
So Alex, earlier you had mentioned, that your kids and parents are having to sign waivers. The coaches are signing waivers. Is that something that has been kind of done across the board? And is that something that's a part of normal high school athletics? I mean, it's not something I obviously know about, but I'm curious, like if you play football at Francis Howell Central, do you have to sign something that says, I understand that if I play football, I can get hurt? And how different is a COVID waiver from any normal type of paperwork that would be required to participate in a high school activity?
Well, I can tell you this is a completely separate waiver. And it's an assumption of risk, that people understand that while we take every precaution, it's coming from the insurance companies and other things with the district, while we take every precaution we can't guarantee you won't catch this COVID-19 thing. And, you know, unfortunately, I mean, kids sign some things and parents sign some stuff when they play, you know, sports for us, but this is a complete new thing. And I think it's going to be an addition you're going to see across the board for everybody. And it may even be something that extends out to just regular school registration when school starts, because if we do come back, there's still going to be that risk.
Yeah.
And ultimately, who gets to decide whether high school sports get to be played? What level is that decided? Is that an IHSA decision? Is that a MSHSAA decision? Is that a local official decision? What are the kind of levels to who makes these very hard choices?
Well, I think what we've seen in Missouri, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like Michigan's stance so far has been it's a local decision. If you're in school, based on the school district's decision, based on county recommendations, if you're in school, you're going to play. You know, if you're not in school, I was in the spring, we didn't play. So in regards to that, you know, John and Shane might be able to help me there. But I think Michigan's standpoint so far has been if you're in school, you can play. If you're not in school, you can't play. But then the next part of that is who's making that decision here? St. Charles County health officials, I'm sure, will say things. St. Louis County, St. Louis City, and the school districts would be involved in making that.
The wild card in this situation is the only time we've dealt with this, we were in the midst deep into a basketball state playoff situation, and you're only dealing with maybe 16 to 32 schools across the state. So what are we going to do if we're in the middle of 9 different sports with half the season left to go, and of the 8 regions in the state, 2 of them can't play? I don't know the answer to that, and I don't envy the people that are going to have to make that decision.
No.
I think that's the scary part too, is part of the issue was nobody wanted to make that decision because it was going to be unpopular. Yeah, you were going to be that person that killed sports. And so that made it more difficult in dealing with it because we couldn't get answers, you know, and you guys were probably in the same boat as us over here in Illinois. We were looking for answers and nobody was giving them to us. It was going, push it this way, push it that way. Somebody, you know, and eventually the decision got made. But I think now that we're in a spot where we're at, I think it's going to just come from, on our side at least, I think it's going to come from the state government. You know, they've kind of guided everything over here, and I think they'll continue to do so.
Curious if gentlemen, if you would share a word of encouragement or outlook for your own school district and your fans and or participants, what would you say to them at this moment as we wrap up our roundtable? Anybody?
I'll go first. You know, it's just our kids are going to work their tails off, and our coaches are going to work to put those kids in a position to be ready to go if it's humanly possible. So, you know, hopefully everybody's patient. Everybody does the best they can to keep the numbers down, and you know, hopefully we can get to play. I'm optimistic that we will get to play as long as we keep going on the right track.
Well, I'll say the same thing I said the last day of school we had. I went to a boys volleyball parent meeting after school, and my message then is the same one we have right now. I said, regardless of what decision is made, the people that are making the decision have one thing foremost in mind, and that is the health and welfare of your children.
Yep. So
if you don't agree with the decision, just keep in mind that they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and they care and love your kids. So that's hard to disagree with.
Right.
And I will echo that as well too. I mean, our first and foremost has to be safety. Everything we do in our jobs is making sure our kids and our coaches stay safe. And also they got to keep in mind, we want to be here. The administrators want to be here. The coaches want to be here. The teachers and administrators, everybody wants to be in school. They know what we did last spring was not good for anybody. So we're not choosing not to be here. I promise you. You know, if they're saying we can't be here full time or we can't play sports, you know, that's because they don't feel it's safe. But so, like they said, be patient and trust me that we love your kids. We want to see your kids back in action just as much as you do, and we want everybody to be here. So to stay patient, we'll get through this together.
I'll say, you know, just understand it's a very slow process, and we're all working together. And like Coach said, we're coaching our kids up. They're excited. You know, they want to be out there. They want you all cheering for them. And but we must follow guidelines because safety is first. And we're better today than we were a month ago. So let's just think positive and hopefully the best will happen for us.
You know, my message is pretty simple. You know, I would tell our community and even the surrounding communities, our conference schools, we all talk regularly. Just do your part. You know, the more you do your part of following these guidelines and doing this social distancing thing, and I know it's not easy. My kids are driving me crazy. You know, but it's if you do your part, it accelerates the process. So if you're doing what you have to do and your family's doing what they have to do, it's gonna just accelerate the process of getting everything back to where everybody wants it and getting things going this fall.
John Piccola from DeSmet, Alex Fox from Edwardsville, Scott Harris from Francis Howell Central, Shane Matson from Marquette, and Ken Turner from St. Mary's. Thank you very much for joining us on the roundtable today. I appreciate all your insight and input. Thank you so much. And I look forward to pestering all of you at some point in August at practices. I want to do that very much. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you.